Okay, let's do this. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Okay.
Today, we're plunging into a really unique source you've shared with us. It's excerpts from a work of fiction, Soul Dancer, by Aurora Rose Lynn.
Yeah, and our mission today really is to unpack this pretty complex world and the intense relationship described in these pages. We're going to try and extract the key dynamics, the rules, which are quite brutal, and what motivates these characters, sort of help you see what's really going on under the surface.
Right, so the setting is way out there, 2975 Common Era, a planet called Manitee-a, and specifically a place called Kattanee Villa. And the source, it immediately lays out this incredibly rigid social structure. You've got a ruling class, the Jaquill, and then a slave class, the kattanee.
And the source highlights this really central kind of shocking aspect of the division. The Jaquill are black-skinned and the kattanee are white-skinned.
Yeah.
And in this fictional world, the social restrictions are severe. The penalties are brutal, including death for relationships between these groups.
Yeah, and this is really crucial for us and for you listening. We are exploring this world and its rules exactly as they're depicted in this specific fictional text. Our job here is just to impartially report on what's in the source material you've given us. We're not endorsing, we're not agreeing with the viewpoints or the society it describes.
Absolutely. We're just conveying the ideas, the events, the dynamics contained within these pages.
So with that understanding, let's jump into this world. Let's get into the story of Kierra Vonne and Jamar Q'ellan.
Okay.
All right, so setting the stage, our central characters. First, Kierra Vonne, she's kattanee.
Right.
So white-skinned and part of the slave class.
And then there's Jamar Q'ellan. He's Jaquill.
Right.
Black-skinned lord, part of the ruling class. And the source tells us pretty early on, they actually knew each other as kids, childhood friends, back when maybe those class lines weren't quite so sharply drawn for them personally.
But the story picks up years later. They run into each other again in Jamar's rooms, his antechamber at Kattanee Villa. And the source describes it as, well, incredibly tense. Kierra is just full of fear, which you quickly understand why.
Oh, absolutely. And Jamar, he clearly wants to reconnect. He's pushing for it.
And you see immediately why Kierra is so terrified. The source is explicit. Sex between a Jaquill and a kattanee, punishable by death.
Yeah. And here's the really brutal twist in this world's rules. Jamar, being Jaquill, he wouldn't face any punishment at all. But Kierra, the kattanee, she would face death. That massive inequality and consequence, it's just fundamental to how this society works.
But then there's this other layer. There's something really unique to this story, this almost mystical element. Jamar has this ability. He can hear the harmonics of the universe, like a kind of music he can transmit somehow.
Right, and Kierra, she has this ability to interpret it, or as the source puts it, to dance to it. It's this shared, almost innate thing between them. Music, movement, it seems to bind them in a way that just bypasses all the rigid social roles they're supposed to follow.
And it's this deep, unconventional bond that really drives their first intimate encounter. That's in chapters 1 and 2. The source paints this vivid picture of Kierra's internal conflict. She's terrified, absolutely terrified of the lethal consequences. But there's also this overwhelming physical, emotional pull towards Jamar. You get lines like, her heart danced in imitation of an erotic and fast-paced samba, or she longed for Jamar in every way a woman longed for a man.
Yeah, and that line, resistance in any form was futile. It really hammers home the intensity of that connection fighting against her survival instinct.
The source also fills in details about the rules for kattanee women, how they dress, how they appear. Basically, they're meant to be unremarkable, almost featureless. Kierra follows these rules, which makes it really significant later when Jamar does things like tear her uniform. It feels symbolic, you know?
Definitely. A symbolic act against those constraints, even if it's temporary. And Jamar, coming from his position as a lord, he has a different view. He talks about these dreams he has, changing the system on Bikutan once he gets power.
Right, like more freedom for the kattanee, fewer powers for the Jaquill.
And specifically ending that death penalty. He actually sees a path, a possibility for a different future.
But Kierra, from her lived reality as kattanee, she's just deeply fatalistic about it all. She tells him change is impossible. The source quotes her saying, Bikutan are resistant to change of any type, especially the black-skinned ones.
Yeah, that contrast is really sharp. His idealism, born from power, versus her fatalism, born from oppression. It really shows how your place in the system shapes your whole outlook on whether change is even conceivable.
So the immediate aftermath in chapter 3, reality crashes back in. Kierra calls their connection a mistake. And it's not just like regret. It's the societal rule reasserting itself as the dominant truth in her head. She feels the danger she's in and feels totally alone with it.
Jamar's reaction, devastated. He flat out refuses to accept it was a mistake, and he immediately pivots, not inward, but outward. He needs to get her off Bikunin. That's when he first mentions taking her to Praadar.
Ah, yes, Praadar. Described as this much freer planet where skin color doesn't dictate your status.
Exactly. And the source then brings in other characters, almost to reinforce how harsh the societal views really are. Jamar's brother, Abzar. It's just chillingly callous. Suggests Jamar should just use Kierra and dump her on Praadar because, and this is a direct quote, the kattanee don't have feelings.
Wow. That line just, it perfectly captures the dehumanization that the source depicts in the Jaquill perspective.
It really does. Then you have Kierra's mother, Eden. She shares Kierra's fear, obviously, but from a parent's angle. She reminds Kierra that her own father whipped her years ago just for associating with Jamar as a child. Physical punishment for breaking even unspoken rules back then.
So Eden reinforces that idea that black and white had no place together, really cementing the rule in Kierra's mind. But significantly, Eden also offers Kierra a different potential escape route, a way for Kierra to get off Bikunin on her own.
And the source notes something important here. Jamar secretly overhears that conversation between Kierra and her mother. And hearing the depth of their fear, hearing Eden's desperate plan, it seems to just harden his resolve. It probably confirms for him that his own much bolder plan is the only way.
Okay, so that brings us to chapters 4, 5, and 6. The next morning, Kierra's back, doing her duties, cleaning Jamar's rooms, and the source says she's full of turmoil, jealousy even, thinking about other women Jamar might be with.
Right, and this is where Jamar's behavior gets really unexpected. Kind of shocking, actually. He's cold, distant. And then he orders Kierra to strip.
Yeah, that part is jarring. The source shows her initial defiance, but quickly crumbles into obedience. It just underlines how few real choices she has in that moment as a kattanee slave facing a Jaquill lord.
But then he explains himself. And it wasn't about cruelty, not exactly. He says he wanted her to fight back, to choose resistance. He frames it like a test, a sort of desperate, maybe misguided attempt to force her to see her own agency, her own power to defy the system, even against him. He says he wanted her to make a choice, to fight me, not to give in.
It shows how much he wants her to see herself as more than just a slave. But his method? It's definitely harsh, born of frustration, maybe.
Seems like it. And it's right after this really intense test that Jamar explicitly says he loves her, and he repeats his plan, take her to Praadar. He knows the risks are huge, but he insists he has guarantees.
And Kierra, maybe seeing the depth of his feeling or the purpose behind that strange test, she asks him to make love to her. Make love to me, Jamar. Make love to me, she says. That feels like a really powerful shift from her earlier fear.
It is, and their intimacy resumes in Chapter 5, but it's layered now. The source points out Kierra realizes Jamar was playing a game. Not a cruel game, but one meant to challenge her own perception of her limits. She sees he's daring her to extend her horizons, to imagine life beyond her prescribed role.
But that ingrained fatalism, it hangs on. Jamar gets frustrated because she still sees herself as just kattanee, you know? She can't seem to fully grasp the possibility he's offering. He says something like, you're terrified of everything, and I don't think you want anything to do with me anymore. There's this tension, even when they're close.
And despite this renewed connection, Kierra makes a secret, really heartbreaking decision. She's convinced their love is impossible in their world, that she's putting him in danger just by being with him. So she decides she has to leave him for his own protection.
So she lies to him.
Yeah. She agrees outwardly that they can help each other, but inside she's planning for this to be their last time together.
Oh, wow. Meanwhile, Jamar, completely unaware of this.
Totally unaware. He's continuing to plan their future, talking about getting married on Praadar. The source describes their intimacy then, and notes how it reflects this complex situation, like, her heart throbbed with an intense ache for what could have been. Captures her internal conflict perfectly.
And then it's Kierra who ends it. Says she can't do this anymore, confirms this was the last time.
But Jamar's not ready to give up. Not at all. He counters, reveals he's actually done it. He's secured passage for both of them on a spaceship to Praadar without papers. He shows her a message on his GCD, his galaxy communication device, like, here's the proof, it's real.
She reads the message, but that fatalism is still so strong. She argues his father, the boss man, Bara, would hunt her down forever just because she's kattanee. She says, there is nothing on Manitee or in the whole galaxy that will change that. For her, the system is just absolute.
Jamar keeps trying. tells her about Praadar's freedom, how there's no extradition for non-criminals there, according to the source. He promises he'll protect her. And then he admits he watched her and her mother the night before.
Which she calls spying.
Yeah, but it shows how deeply invested he is, how desperate he is to understand her situation and find a way out.
And finally, she agrees. Okay, I'll go.
But the source is really clear here. Her expression, her whole demeanor, it shows she doesn't actually believe it's possible. And that lack of faith, it really hurts Jamar.
And then, Chapter 6. The system strikes back hard. Things happen fast. Jamar can't meet Kierra as planned because he gets confronted by his father, Bara.
The boss man.
Exactly. And it turns out Bara had been monitoring Jamar's communications. He caught that GCD message about taking Kierra to Praadar.
Oh, no.
Bara's reaction is swift and severe. He uses this chilling language, says Jamar has been defiled by a kattanee girl, and he confines Jamar to his room, under guard. The source notes how efficient this system is at enforcing its rules, especially right at the top.
So Kierra's waiting, and he doesn't show up.
She waits. He doesn't come. And she just despairs. Assumes he abandoned her or decided a kattanee wasn't worth the risk. It feeds right back into her deepest fears. But then her mother, Eden, finds her. And Eden has news. Jamar's confined. And Bara will be coming for Kierra next. The net is closing.
Right, and that's when Kierra finally realizes he didn't break his promise, he was stopped. Her mind starts racing, thinking about what Bara might do to Jamar because of her, and it's in that moment, that fear for him. She thinks of the skin-changing injections.
The ones Jamar mentioned were on Praadar.
Exactly. She asks her mother about them. And incredibly, Eden says she has access to 1 dose. Just 1. Enough to change Kierra's skin color to black. But only once.
Wow. But Eden warns her, right? It's risky.
Very risky. Experimental, unpredictable effects could even be fatal. But Kierra makes this radical choice. She decides to take the risk, not primarily for herself initially, but to save Jamar. She believes if she can change her skin color, pose as Jaquill, she can somehow get him freed.
So Eden gives her the injection in her arm. And then comes the transformation and this incredibly bold, desperate plan. She decides to adopt the persona of Erika.
Yeah, Erika, apparently a woman from Praadar who had visited Jamar before. So Kierra has to adopt the whole look. Lipstick, silver dress, high heels details mentioned in the source as Jaquill appropriate, and now, of course, black skin.
And there's a weird twist here with Ebsar, Jamar's brother.
Right. The callous brother actually helps. The source says he sent a picture of the transformed Kierra described as curvaceous, bodacious Erika from Praadar to Jamar's GCD. Maybe to set the stage. Maybe his motivations are more complicated, like he just wants Jamar settled with any Jaquill woman, even a fake one. It's ambiguous.
So Kierra shows up at Jamar's room, performs as Erika for the guards, using their past, their intimacy, their supposed marriage plans as cover. That must have taken incredible nerve.
Unbelievable nerve.
You know?
And Jamar, he gets it instantly. Sees her, understands the disguise, and plays along perfectly. He weaves their real history, their inside jokes into the performance. It shows just how deep their connection is, that they can communicate and collaborate even like this. They're kind of performing their unique music again, but for a hostile audience.
And then Bara interrupts them. Sees Erika, sees Kierra.
But doesn't see Kierra. He's completely fooled. He sees a black-skinned woman, assumes it's Erika. And he's pleased. He mistakenly thinks Jamar's fixation on the kattanee Kierra was just a fling, and now he's choosing a suitable Jaquill partner.
It really highlights how blind the system is, right? Focused only on the surface, on skin color, completely missing the real connection.
Totally. So Jamar and Kierra, still playing their parts, confirm they're getting married within the next couple of days on Praadar. And Bara, satisfied that Jamar is finally conforming, approves. He lets them go.
So they actually make it. The epilogue describes their departure, their marriage on Praadar, the very next day. The source mentions details like Kierra's white satin gown, white roses, maybe symbols of her origin, contrasting with her still black skin from the injection.
Yeah, and it specifically mentions their unique music being present at the wedding. That symbol of their core connection has survived the journey, the transformation, everything.
And they talk afterwards.
They do. Kierra reflects on how she feels just like myself, but with black skin. That's a powerful line in the source. Suggests her core identity, who she is, hasn't changed despite everything she went through. But they also acknowledge the uncertainty. How long will the injection last? That question hangs over their future on Praadar.
Jamar recognizes what she did, right? The sacrifice.
Oh, yeah. He acknowledges her immense sacrifice, her fear she'd risked everything for him. He also understands she might be homesick for her family back on Manitee. And he reiterates his promise. He's still going to work to change their homeworld, One step at a time, he says.
And the source ends there, with them dancing.
Yeah, dancing, entwined as the sun sets on Praadar. That final image, them together, moving to their unique music,
Yeah.
it's presented as the culmination of their defiance, their escape.
Wow. Okay. That was quite a journey through the pages of Soul Dancer. An intense exploration of this fictional world defined by this incredibly rigid, brutal division based on skin color, and following these two characters trying to find connection, find freedom against just seemingly impossible odds.
Yeah, by really diving into the source material like this, we've seen how it tackles some really complex themes. Identity, for one, how it's seen from the outside versus how it's felt inside. Also, the difficult choices people make under oppressive systems, the sheer weight of societal rules, and the radical lengths someone might go to challenge it all, even literally changing their appearance.
This deep dive really gives us a fascinating look at that clash, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Individual desire, personal connection, banging up against these deeply entrenched rules, and the courage it takes to try and break free, even if it means embracing something totally risky and uncertain, like that transformation.
Absolutely. And as you listening reflect on this story, this world depicted in the source, maybe consider this provocative thought that arises from these pages. How much of our own identity is shaped by the external world's rule, by how others perceive us, versus the choices we make about who we are inside and who we choose to connect with?